This is a very important faculty lecture. This is the time of the year when we honor our Humanities Teacher of the Year. This year, our Humanities Teacher of the Year is Dr. Terri Ruckel, and we're all very proud of her. Now, I know she doesn't really need an introduction among all of you guys, in which many of you know her very well, but I still want to do that for her. Dr. Ruckel first started with a bachelor's in English from the University of Southern Mississippi. She continued at USM to get her master's in English with a graduate minor in women's studies. To continue her education, she then headed to LSU, the best college other than PRC, to get her doctorate in English. Dr. Ruckel has been with us for several years now, and we are very proud to call her one of our English instructors, a mentor to many students. She is our Honors College coordinator for our campus. This lady has helped our Honors College grow from just a couple students to now over 30 students. Really had some great accomplishments here. She's very deserving of the Humanities Teacher of the Year award. I want you to all help me welcome Dr. Terri Ruckel.
I must say thank you to Dr. William Lewis, Dr. Jana Causey, Dr. Mandy Parker, and Greg Underwood, my chair, for nominating me to receive this significant award. Thank you, colleagues, especially for bringing your classes today. Thank you, students, for attending this presentation. I so appreciate this honor. But I must acknowledge that any success I have as a teacher depends in large part on my company of colleagues who often offer me their good counsel and encouraging support, on the engaged and gifted students who register for my classes, and because of this college with which I'm associated. Dr. Lewis is a strong supporter of the humanities. Accordingly, since teaching is not a solitary calling, today should be no exception, and it isn't. I'd like to introduce the chorus of cohorts who will assist me today. So please stand when I call your name. Dr. Jennifer Mraz, instructor of biology, and my students, Rachel Carrera, Christian Davis, and Jamie, massive J, Massingale. From the time that I got the call until now, of course right now I'm very nervous, but I was thrilled to be recognized as Pearl River's Humanities Teacher of the Year. And when I initially prepared for this presentation, I thought, I could talk about my research interest, like women writers in Mississippi. Eudora Welty, anybody? Or maybe William Faulkner, the writer with whom I have spent many an hour in pursuit of research nirvana. But then I recalled an email message sent to me a couple of years ago by another Pearl River Vice President, Dr. Martha Lee Smith. She was attending some conference aimed at creating more innovative classes on the community college campus. And she sent me a quick message about the concept of using poetry in a biology classroom. I never forgot Dr. Smith's suggestion to me, and I thought it might be more interesting to an audience that has science students, math students, technology students, future engineers, as well as artists, future historians, or future English teachers like me. So, the title of my humanities presentation, Poetry in the Biology Classroom. what the humanities can do for STEM. My lecture underscores my very strong belief that the humanities education and learning are crucial for college students. The humanities stress the value of learning to think critically and independently. No matter what major a student chooses, being able to read powerfully, write precisely, and speak articulately decides the difference between being a mediocre student or being an exceptional student. And I'm giving my life to encouraging the latter. On the other hand, as much as I would like to use this as an opportunity to stand here and preach an infomercial on the humanities, I want to encourage those of you who love math and science too. In fact, if you go in my office right now, I've painted the end of my bookcase with chalkboard paint, and there are calculus problems right now for interested calculus students to come in and solve. I want you all to understand the synergy that can exist between the disciplines, while at the same time educating you all that the humanities, poetry or music or history, they offer methods for deepening comprehension and developing a level of empathy and knowledge that can be applied to any real-world situation and to any college curriculum. I hope to illustrate for you during this short presentation, I promise not to keep you more than 30 minutes, that poetry shouldn't just be part of the language arts curriculum. Poetry offers another way to communicate and demonstrate our understanding of a concept in multiple content areas. We can look to poetry to assess science. We can look to music to evaluate math. In fact, right now, I want to show you how, or demonstrate, how that's happening on our campus right now.
Good morning. Wow, you guys are really excited. Okay. Good morning. Nice morning. My name is Rachel Carrara, and I'm a freshman here on campus, and I'm an A student in Dr. Donahue's algebra class. And so about halfway through the semester, we were going over the quadratic equation, and I had never heard of the quadratic equation sung. So have any of you here ever heard the quadratic equation song? Raise your hand. Okay, about half the people in here. Okay, so Dr. Donahue was joking in class. You know how we students always want to get extra credit. And a lot of people were like, please give us extra credit if we sing the song. And he said, well, if you sing it like Carrie Underwood, you can get extra credit. So I went by his office later to make sure that he was legit about that. So I came back later and I sang it like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2. Hey, Okay, so for those of you who have raised your hand, I'd like you to stand up and we will sing it the other way, the other version. Pop goes the weasel. Ready? Oh, I saw more of you guys out there. I did. There we go. Yeah. Okay. You ready? 1, 2, 3. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Good job, give them a hand. For those of you who aren't sure what the humanities means or what just happened right here, let me sum it up for you as succinctly as I might. The humanities are courses that study human culture. Wait, let me change my slide. What humans did, or said, or thought, or believed, or wrote about, as recently as yesterday, or as long ago as tens of thousands of yesterdays before. Many of you know that I teach English, so it should go without saying that writing, whether creative or academic composition, and literature and grammar are part of the humanities. So are, and you can see the list up there, history, art, music, philosophy, geography, politics, dance, theater, religion, as well as the visual arts, which might include drawing, painting, film, and one of my personal favorites, gaming. The humanities are frequently contrasted, however, and often cast in competition with natural physical sciences, as well as professional training. Take note, on this campus, we have all three of those types of learning going on. The Allied Health Building just down the hill is home for most of the science classes offered on this campus. Biology, anatomy and physiology, chemistry, physical science. This half of the campus houses the humanities: history, English, religion, philosophy, language study. Other students at PRCC, FCC, and my math guys are looking up here saying, math, math. Other students at PRCC, FCC attend classes designed to teach them a specific set of skills in technical or vocational areas, which might guarantee them the possibility of getting a job as soon as they are certified in those skills, like welding, electronics, dental hygiene, practical nursing, just to name a few. Take note that just as our science and humanities classes are on opposite ends on our campus, the sciences and the humanities are also often separated, but by other factors as well. In fact, imbalances in government funding in universities, colleges, and the workplace have furthered what is often called the Great Divide. This Great Divide is often voiced in my classrooms. In my day-to-day duties as an English teacher, especially in my literature classes, I'm often confronted by students who want to know, was an engineering or a math student or a nursing student having to read Shakespeare or Faulkner or, gasp, Machiavelli? And I give them my pitch for the humanities that goes something like this. We live in a world increasingly dominated by the need for more science, technology, engineering, and math, and that's fine. Pursuing careers in science, engineering, technology, and math, and medicine is likely to get you a better paying job. Your pursuit of careers in these areas is going to get me something too. A faster computer, a more fuel-efficient car, a longer life. But it is precisely because STEM is so powerful that we need the humanities now more than ever. In your science, math, and engineering classes, you're getting the facts. The humanities, at least the way I teach them, is much more about questions than answers, more about personal and narrative reflection than empirical evidence. What is truth anyway? How do we know something is true? Or rather, why do we believe certain things are true and other things aren't? How do we decide whether something is right or wrong, for us personally or for society as a whole? What's the meaning of life? What is the point of living? Should happiness be our goal? Well, what the heck is happiness? Should happiness be an end in itself, or just a side effect of some other more important goal, like gaining knowledge or reducing suffering? Yes, to be or not to be, or how to be or how not to be, these are the questions, and they demand time and thought in the humanities. The humanities are also revolutionary. They just might provide you all with a healthy dose of skepticism. This skepticism is especially important when it comes to claims about humanity, about what we are, where we came from, and even what we can and should be. Science has told us a lot about ourselves, and we're learning more every day. But the humanities remind us that we have an enormous capacity for fooling ourselves. They also tell us that every single human is unique, different than every other human. And each of us keeps changing in unpredictable ways. Did I sell you? Can you see how important taking humanities courses in today's world might be? I hope so. In fact, maybe this poster is a controversial poster, but you should look at it and laugh. Science can tell you how to clone a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Humanities can tell you why this might not be a good idea.
Do it. Jurassic Park.
This headline is from the Chronicle of Higher Education. So you can see it, report card on the humanities finds light amid the gloom. Well, kind of, sort of. More undergraduates majored in the humanities in 2011 than did so a decade ago, but federal support for research in those disciplines accounted for less than 0.5%, do the math, of the money given to colleges for science and engineering. Whoa. A more recent newsletter from the Mississippi Humanities Council boasted the title, "The Chronic Illness of the Humanities." Executive Director Dr. Stuart Ruckel reports that at a recent fall symposium sponsored by the Institute for the Humanities at Mississippi State, there was much discussion about the crisis in the humanities. Dr. Kreis Snyder, Dean of the Honors College at Mississippi State, shared sobering statistics about the declining popularity of humanities majors at American universities and the recent decrease in federal funding for the National Endowment for the Humanities. The panel and the audience shared several examples of humanities departments being cut or eliminated. As universities and their students focus their time and resources on fields of study that seem more directly connected to a more financially rewarding career. Okay, so far, you've heard a lot from me about the humanities, and to be fair, this is a humanities lecture, but I believe the challenge for me today to reach an audience not comprised solely of my own tribe, and colleges and universities must find ways to teach and write across the boundaries of difference, across the divide of the humanities from the sciences, and yes, Here's the point in my lecture when I actually get to the title. I want to discuss the possibilities of morphing our STEM focus to include the arts is not my own idea. The idea to put STEAM curriculum into practice has a lot of support across our nation. But in my humble humanities opinion, and to toss out a metaphor for emphasis, science classes are like petri dishes filled with imagination. And in the merger of science with the poetic imagination, I want to suggest the perfect union of poetry and science. STEM has been at the forefront of educational reform over the last decade. But I'm here today to advocate that this oft-referenced acronym should morph into STEAM. More recently, quite a few education advocates are arguing for the importance of the arts in fostering STEM classes. Scientists and artists are both trying to get a better understanding of the world around us, but they are doing it through different lenses. Kate Cook, a teacher at a STEM school in Ohio, told High Velocity, quote, "Nothing exists in a vacuum in the real world or in a school. It makes sense when we try to approach problems from multiple perspectives," end quote. I agree with Cook that the arts are a great learning tool and can serve as an on-ramp to STEM, especially for underrepresented students. Engaging student strengths using art activities increases motivation and the probability of STEM success. Art is a way of offering more diverse learning opportunities and greater access to STEM for all types of learners. And now, my team and I would like to demonstrate how a poetry activity might provide engagement with a difficult anatomy and physiology class, increasing the likelihood of STEM success.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Today's class lecture will be on the events at the neuromuscular junction. So it all begins with an action potential propagating down an axon to the axon terminals. Calcium then floods in, initiating exocytosis of synaptic vesicles containing acetylcholine into the synaptic cleft. Acetylcholine, neurotransmitter, right? Then diffuses across, attaches to receptors on protein channels on the sarcolemma of the actual muscle fiber. Then those channels open, allowing sodium to flood into the muscle, a little bit of potassium to flood out at the same time, initiating local depolarization. And if enough sodium floods in to reach threshold, you will then initiate an action potential that will then propagate along the entire length of the muscle fiber. Yes, Jamie?
I don't know. This is tough. Let me think about it. What's the question about the lesson? I'm sitting here, guess it's got me stressing. I'm trying to be bold, trying to understand the threshold. Yeah. What is that, nigga? 6.5 or so I'm told? Something like that. I don't know. Yeah. And what's the function of the junction? Neuromuscular junction. I only came here for the luncheon. I'm ready. Yeah. Inspiration, exploration. Someday that you will lead the nation. But where would I be without creativity? Where would I be without creativity and poetry, technology? metatarsals, feel it in your mitral valve, feel it in your pericardium, what? Yeah, what? Where would I be without all those humanities and the synaptic cleft? What's left? Yeah, that's right. I don't know. That's pretty much all I got, y'all.
Hello again. So I wrote a poem on everybody's favorite biology topic, the cell cycle. Cellular replication, what's it all about? Chromatin, chromosomes, chromatids with centromeres, and centrosomes of centrioles. You guys got it? Got it all? Right. You start with interphase, cell growth and replication. Then there's meiosis or mitosis, depending on what you want to do, whether it's making 4 cells from 1 cell or starting with 1 to make 2. If you want to make all the cells in the body, except what made me and you, mitosis would come after interphase. You would start with 1 cell to make 2. 4 phases, PMAT, in a row, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, with cell division, cytokinesis, at the very end, keeping you alive for all of your days. After interphase, prophase begins. Chromatin condenses, and now you have chromosomes, 23 pairs consisting of 2 sister chromatids attached together at the centromere. Centrioles at the centrosomes act like fishing poles, casting out their spindle fibers to catch each centromere. Then metaphase begins. Movement of the chromosomes to line up in the center of the cell with help of centrioles. Centrosomes of centrioles at opposite poles, playing tug of war to line up the chromosomes. Then anaphase begins. Sister chromatids say their goodbyes, detaching from each other, reeled in opposite directions by the fishing poles, the centrioles, to start the next phase of their existence in separate cells. Then telophase begins. The nuclear envelope starts to reform, and former sister chromatids, now chromosomes, unravel to form chromatin. A cleavage furrow forms. Cytokinesis has begun, cutting the cell in half to create 2 cells from the original 1.
Just so you know, poetry and science go way back. Poets from the ancient times have investigated scientific concepts, and scientists today and from the ancient past have been tempted by verse. Poetry was the first written way we addressed such questions as, what is the world made of? Where did it come from? In the 6th and 5th centuries BC, the pre-Socratics, that means smart Greek guys before Socrates. See what I did there, Tim and Ryan? Reworked these questions, writing on physics, chemistry, geology, astronomy, theology, metaphysics, epistemology, and often in verse. Some would argue that science was born in poetry. Lucretia's epic on atoms, on the nature of things, continued this tradition. And 2 disciplines, earlier encounters also resulted, for instance, in the late 1700s scientific treatises written in poetic form. So did the 18th century doctor Erasmus Darwin, recognize his last name. He's the grandfather of the more famous version. His poem, The Temple of Nature, outlined a theory of evolution following life forms from microorganisms to human society. Imagine this. We might think of poetry as a means to study nature. So is science. Not only do many poets find their subject matter and inspiration in the natural world, but the poem's enactment itself is a study of the unknown, since art is the materialization of the inner life, the truly wild territory that we might explore. Let's listen to an excerpt from Alison Hawthorne Deming's book, The Monarchs, a poem sequence, which was inspired by the migration behavior of monarch butterflies and is an extended meditation on intelligence in nature. This excerpt will stand as additional evidence that careful examination of facts yields easily to the contemplation of the miraculous, that a mode of questioning we associate with science can become a nest of poetic delight.
Who's got center stage now? A caterpillar spits out a sack of silk, where it lies entombed while its genes switch on and off like lights on a pinball machine. If every cell contains the entire sequence constituting what or who the creature is, how does a certain clump of cells know to line up side by side and turn into wings? Then shut off while another clump blinks on, spilling pigments into the creature's emerald green blood. Waves of color flowing into wing scales, black, orange, and white, each zone receptive only to the color it's destined to become. And then the wings unfold, still wet from their making, and for a dangerous moment hold steady, while they stiffen and dry, the double-layered wing a proto-language. One side warning enemies, the other luring mates. And then the pattern-making cells go dormant, and the butterfly has mastered flight.
The relationship between poetry and science, as demonstrated in this poem, provokes passion. Like the scientist, each time a poet sets out to write a poem, he or she launches into unknown territory, a landscape that opens with image, word, or story. Yes, in this interdisciplinary intersection between poets and scientists, we can find many similarities. Scientists and poets both regard the world with wonder. Scientists and poets witness the world. Each watches, observes, and records, understanding that the observer affects that which is observed. Indeed, the mythological significance of science also attracts poets, guiding stories and metaphors, the Big Bang, the tangled bank, the neural jungle. No one with a television can fail to perceive that current scientific events play a prominent role in our culture. Whether we understand the events or not, the incredible staying power of Star Trek and all its combinations and permutations and spin-off subculture attest to this. Where will those wacky intergalactic science nerds lead us next? In addition to the questing of science, its language also attracts the poet, the beautiful musicality of the vocabulary. The poet in me is wooed by words such as zeolite, cryptogam. Mandy, will you explain these words to me after the lecture? Xenotransplant, endolithic. So I must confess a secret desire to edit some science books, to save them from the tedious syntax in which most science writing imprisons them. You don't have to take my word on this. Ethnobotanist and writer Gary Paul Naban, one of the most gifted of disciplinary cross-thinkers, asserts that, quote, narrative and metaphor are more honest, precise, and comprehensive ways of explaining an animal's life history, better than the standard technical format of hypothesis, materials, methods, results, discussion. Though some would make much of the divide that separates the disciplines of science and poetry, I hope today, at least briefly, I've shown you a pathway where we might enter into one another's territory. For me, the divide is less a rift separating tectonic plates. It's more like a border separating nations, because a border also provides us with a zone of contact where we can exchange some aspects of our differences. Our departments could ultimately be more like neighboring tribes who exchange seashells and obtain something that's lacking in our own locality. Much is to be gained when scientists raid the evocative techniques of literature, and when poets raid the language and mythology of scientists. I quote Deming again here, the butterfly poet whose work Chris so eloquently read, quote, "I would like to write a poem that other poets would appreciate for its formal ingenuity, that scientists would appreciate for its accuracy in attending to the phenomenal world, that the woman at the checkout counter at Walmart would appreciate for its down-to-earth soul, and that I would appreciate for its honesty in examining what troubles and moves me, as would I." And so, yes, today I stand to advocate that we put poetry in the science classroom. Dr. Mraz, can I team teach the environmental science class with you? I wish that this short lecture might have offered you some inspiration today, that we would be about the learning of how to apply art in all of our courses. If I haven't convinced you or inspired you, at least know this: what is most important is that every human being deserves to learn about the arts and humanities, and each person should be cognizant of the sciences. Students, you need a quality education, one that enables you to take and make informed decisions so that you can impact the world and the way that you live. It's all about making all of you fully literate in our 21st century. Thank you.